ChatGPT secretly dropped ChatGPT 5.2. There were no live streams, no theatrical release, just the post on X that said, well, ChatGPT 5.2 is here, and it's our best model yet, which is strange, and I think I know why. But before we get there, let's actually get into, well, ChatGPT 5.2. As in every release, we're in this cycle where it's the game between Grok, Anthropic, Gemini, and ChatGPT. And now we're back in the ChatGPT cycle, with ChatGPT 5.2 being, well, better at almost everything. We see that in this graph here, it's a comparison between ChatGPT 5.1 and a comparison with ChatGPT 2, where we see that, well, ChatGPT 5.2 is just a lot better in every way. We see that they are better in the Sweetbench, Sweetbench Pro, QA Diamond, and so on and so forth. This is the same charts and metrics that we see for every AI, and all of them are usually better than the last, which is great. But their official releases says that ChatGPT 5.2 sets a new state-of-the-art across many benchmarks, including GDP Val, where it outperforms industry professional at well-specified knowledge work tasks spanning 44 occupation. Basically what that means is ChatGPT 5.2 is better than professional level people, and I would say more so expert level people at their own industries, which is pretty cool. But the scary part is, if this AI is so great, then why did they just drop this and barely even acknowledge this so close to Christmas? It's very interesting, and I do think I know why. But if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest AIs, you definitely like and subscribe. But let's get back into ChatGPT 5.2. They said Notion, Box, Shopify, Harvey, and Zoom observed that ChatGPT 5.2 demonstrates state-of-the-art long horizon reasoning and tool calling performance, basically saying that it's better when it comes to doing their work. They say ChatGPT 5.2 thinking beats or ties top industry professionals on 70.9% of comparison on the GDP Val knowledge work tasks according to expert human judges. And you see in this graph here, you do see that it has a 74% compared to 5.2 thinking, which has a 70.9%, and then compared to, well, GPT-5, which has a 38%, which is a huge increase from these models versus the best base level ChatGPT 5. And so more about the GDP Val, it's basically, well, professional level work, and it seemed like it's aiming towards more business level work that is being done here, and that is beating out majority of people. They said in their internal benchmark, junior investment banking analysis spreadsheet modeling tasks, such as putting together a 3-statement model for a Fortune 500 company with proper formatting and citations, and building a leverage buyout model for a take private. GPT 5.2 thinking average score per task is 9.3% higher than GPT 5.1, rising from 59.1% to 68.4%. Meaning it's the best at doing professional tasks. But the GP Val is an eval measuring well-specified knowledge work tasks across 44 occupations. GPT 5.2 thinking sets a new state-of-the-art score, of course, and it seems like this ChatGPT 5.2 is really aimed towards how well it is beating out humans at tasks, because it says that ChatGPT 5.2 can produce outputs for a GDP Val task at 11x faster the speed and less than 1% the cost of expert professionals. That's an interesting statistic, because they're saying that this AI is 11 times faster than humans at literally a fraction of the cost, is what they're saying. And it seems like that's most of the top part of the article. They even have examples here where you see they have this workforce planner where you see ChatGPT 5.1 versus ChatGPT 5.2, and it looks like an Excel spreadsheet that is organized by ChatGPT, and you see which one is better. I will say ChatGPT 5.2 visually looks better. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with ChatGPT 5.1, but it is very clean and simple. but ChatGPT 5.2 is very organized and visually pleasing. The prompt for this was create a workforce planning model, headcount, hiring plan, attrition, and budget impact, including engineering, marketing, legal, and sales department. And it does look pretty good. They also did another one side by side for ChatGPT 5.1 thinking versus ChatGPT 5.2 thinking. And this was for a CAPM table. They say that ChatGPT 5.1 incorrectly calculated seed, Series A, and Series B liquidation preferences and left majority of the rows blank, leading to an incorrect final equity payout calculation. It also incorrectly inserted calculations in row headers, where of course ChatGPT 5.2 completed all calculations correctly and in an audit table way. So basically ChatGPT 5.1 didn't even finish the job correctly. It would be unusable what ChatGPT 5.1 even did versus what ChatGPT 5.2 did. But it didn't just stop there. They also have a project management where you see ChatGPT 5 versus ChatGPT 5.2, where you see that ChatGPT 5 has a decent progress summary. Month 2, it's okay, very bare bones, but compared to ChatGPT 5.2 thinking, a lot more visually appealing, even has a little bit more date information so you can tell what's going on. It's not just prettier, it's actually more informative. The prompt was pretty lengthy though, but it still outputted better results with the longer prompt. I think one thing to note here is that they use ChatGPT 5 thinking versus ChatGPT 5.2 thinking. They kind of skipped the ChatGPT 5.1 for whatever reason that was, which is interesting, which is also a note to say that information a lot of time with these AI models could be cherry picked. We don't know all the outputs they could have gotten from these models or different scenarios they may have tested. That ChatGPT 5.2 just didn't do better than the previous model. But of course, going into the other evaluations, we see that it did better with coding, beating out ChatGPT 5.2 with the sweet bench. But when it comes to coding, it doesn't just stop there. They actually have this live ocean wave simulator where it was created by, well, ChatGPT 5.2, where you can control the wind speed, the wave height, and the lightning for this application. As well as you can do things like a holiday card builder that they actually made, where you can play a jingle, shake, and then just have an overall look and feel for the card and build it however you want to, which is still pretty cool. I'm not saying that this isn't impressive, but I'm just saying that this isn't anything I don't think ChatGPT 5.1 could do or couldn't do, and I don't think this is anything that Anthropic nor Gemini, maybe not even Grok, couldn't do itself as well. But it is cool to see, but this is nothing that I think beats out the competition when it comes to the best AI. They do have some more data for how well these things did, but one thing that they kind of noted was how well it has with the visual models. ChatGPT 5.2 thinking has a strong grasp on how elements are positioned within an image, which helps it on tasks with relative layout plays a key role in solving the problem. In the example below, they said that they asked the model to identify the components in the image input, in this case a motherboard, and return labels with approximate bounding boxes even on a low quality image. And ChatGPT 5.2 was able to do that. As you see in the image, they had a motherboard, and you see how ChatGPT 5.2 did the motherboard and the bounding boxes to label search components, and you see how ChatGPT 5.2 did it. ChatGPT 5.2 actually did really good. And granted, this is a low quality image, but it is still a good example of how ChatGPT 5.2 understands images a lot better. It can get more out of an image, even in low context. It also does better with tool calling, and it's done really well with customer service. But what we really want to see is how well, besides the demos that they put out, does it actually do? And what we see here from the community, we see the infamous bouncing ball test by Flavio, and it looks pretty good. I like the aesthetics of the overall bouncing balls. Is definitely a little different than what we see from the other AI models that they usually do the bouncing ball test. So I like the difference there. It doesn't just stop there. They also do these little shader examples where somebody made this shader example of a building where the prompt was create a visually interesting shader that can run in Twiggle.app, making it like an infinite city of neo-Gothic towers partially drowned in stormy ocean with large waves, single shot, which isn't bad. Also, they had this here where it says, let's put this to the test and build a black hole simulation. This person made a black hole with ChatGPT 5.2 and it looks pretty good. But also, we've seen this done time and time again just with the bouncing ball simulator as well, on how people are building these things in other AIs. So you're getting to the point where ChatGPT may be the best, but does it matter if everybody else can also do the same thing? And we know another AI is going to come out just as good, if not better, from the other competitors. Not only that, somebody else made a Lego builder as well for ChatGPT 5.2, and it looks good. I don't have anything bad to say about that. And they did a similar thing here. Somebody put this kind of website that seems to be handling, I actually don't know what this is handling, but it seems pretty cool, and it was made by ChatGPT 5.2. I think all of this is pretty cool to see by ChatGPT, but the real question is, why did they just drop the mic and walk off when it came to the announcement? Usually ChatGPT has a bigger rollout for these bigger announcements, which makes me think that this is just the beginning. We know that they already did a code red for Gemini when they came out with Gemini 3, but let's be honest, a lot of these models, not just for ChatGPT, but for a lot of these big AI companies, are already working on their next model and models on top of models, where they just have a lot of training in different ways. If you remember, ChatGPT had a weird naming convention where they had like a ChatGPT 4.5 series, and then they had another ChatGPT series that was named like ChatGPT 4.0, right? They were just weird naming conventions altogether, which were different approaches to how people did AI. And so they had these models cooking, and they would stagger out how they released it. Some were better at math and science and coding. Some were better at, well, writing essays and papers and creative work. And I think ChatGPT 5.2 was just a model that was already cooking in the background, and that's not a bad thing, but I do think they have something else up their sleeves. They just wanted to go ahead and get back in the first place position, which probably is their rightful position now that we've seen Gemini 3 release and we've seen Grok release their 4.1. They just wanted to get another head start before the next release cycle. Also, another thing to note about this is that it actually is cheaper, this ChatGPT 4.2 model, where it's $1.75 for input and output is about $14. This is per million tokens as well, compared to ChatGPT 5, which input was $50 and output was $120, right? But tell me down below, do you think about the new ChatGPT 5.2? Do you think that they are holding something up their sleeves, or do you think that this is all they had? This is the best shot they had at Gemini 3 and Google. If you want to know more about Code Red, you should watch my latest video on Code Red and how they were shaken to their very core by Gemini 3.